So what we want to do is cultivate a capacity for kindness. So, close your eyes. Take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out. So what we want to do is cultivate a capacity for kindness. So, close your eyes. Take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out. So what we want to do is cultivate cultivate a capacity for kindness. So, close your eyes. Take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out.
All good.
Hello, chat. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. I'm here with Moist, Critical, Charlie, and just want to let everyone know that this is... Oh, okay. There's my face.
Oh boy. Yeah, that was supposed to... Sorry for that. That was supposed to be in a different scene.
That's fine, man. Just a heads up to everyone that we're going to be talking a little bit about gamer rage and controlling anger today. And this is a stream that's going to be sponsored by Opera GX. So Opera GX is a browser for gamers by gamers. And they've been kind enough to also sponsor some coaching for people in our community. So we'll be sharing a link, which y'all can see on the stream. The bot will be sharing a link with y'all. And Charlie and I are going to talk today just about gamer rage.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite topics, actually. I'm a big indulger of watching gamer rage moments.
Yeah, dude, that's actually some of my favorite content is actually like React content with you watching gamers rage.
Oh, it's always something very special, yeah.
So I think to start off, we're actually just going to watch a quick video that Opera GX has put together. So I'll be covering Critical's face for this.
No worries.
But we can still hear you.
Each year, thousands of keyboards, controllers, and other gaming accessories are destroyed by their owners
This is very
in
important to
fits
understand.
of uncontrolled anger.
Yeah, you hate
But
to see
what if
that.
it didn't have to be that way? At Opera GX, we care about
Dude, I'd
you
love to have an office like
and
this.
your gear.
It's not
That's why
bad.
we've put our best minds to work developing a new
It needs more
generation
like
of
RGB
top-of-the-line
though, like real
devices
gamer stuff.
that can survive even your worst bouts of gamer rage.
I sometimes wonder if that's actually what's happening, where someone is hitting a button somewhere that causes you to lag.
Introducing Anger Controllers.
It usually is. They're a bunch of cheaters. When you lose a game, it's because
The world's
somebody
first gaming
sabotaged you. I've
peripherals
said that
with
for years.
infinite lives, so you can release your rage without paying the price. Unleash your fury with Anger Controllers.
Wait. Hold up. An anger controller? Seriously? Wouldn't it be better if we could just learn to control our anger?
Well,
Hi, no,
I'm Dr. K,
wait.
and along with Critical, we're teaming up with
is this?
OfferGX to talk about something that doesn't get a whole lot of play in gaming.
You'll
We
understand
get
soon.
it.
I'm
Raging
sure.
most of the time
It'll
is
come
just
together.
for memes, but sometimes it gets the
This is
better of us,
surreal.
even me. So join us for a discussion around gaming-related stress, whether you're looking
They've
for
cloned
support
me.
or just want to
Critical.
share your voice. I'll share some of my
No,
experiences and
you've
get
been
Critical
minted in the
to share some of
blockchain
his.
now.
Join us at opera.com/gx/anger-control.
That was really strange, dude. And
I thought it was cute.
so you're an expert when it comes to gamer rage. Uh-oh. Cloning myself. No. Right?
I would say I'm one of the preeminent researchers when it comes to gamer rage. I wouldn't necessarily call myself an expert yet because I don't understand why it
Really?
happens, but I just love to I love to dig deep
Wait,
into it.
you
and just
game,
watch it.
right?
Yeah, but I usually don't get mad. Not since I've been an adult.
Why do you think that is?
Because I'm not good at the games. I feel like if I was better at the games, I'd care more. Chess makes me mad, actually, and that's because I was pretty decent at chess, so losing felt worse. And it's something that's totally in your control to not lose as long as you're good.
And what have you learned from all of your research?
That gamer rage is extremely entertaining as a spectator sport.
Let me fix my audio. One second.
Yeah, no worries.
A double clone actually like duplicated my audio. So let me see if this works. Okay, can you say something?
Hey, hey.
Is that better, chat? It's Critical's audio? Yeah, I think we fixed it.
Is my audio all messed up or are we good?
Your audio was getting transmitted through my microphone, through my speakers. So I think it should be fixed now.
Okay.
It's still out of sync. He's still delayed, they're saying. Do you think there's an should I try to reconnect to the Discord call?
Like, I'm delayed. Am I delayed in the Discord on your screen or just... Oh, I know why. It's because I'm streaming too, so I'm using a virtual cam. So the virtual cam is probably like a split
see.
second behind. I see it
Okay.
in Discord.
Yeah, so they're saying that it looks fine to me, actually. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like a real split
Okay.
second, but we're talking about gamer rage, so it's gonna be like some actual turbo gamers in here that would notice that.
Yeah, people who are like really on top of FPS and
Yeah. They're playing right now on like a 480 hertz
Yeah.
monitor.
So what have you discovered through your research about the gamer rage?
Well, it seems most prevalent in streamers,
Really?
actually. It's like, yeah, it feels like almost every good gamer rage moment is streamed. And now I'm sure there's other instances of like, private raging, but the most explosive I see is when it's in front of an audience, whether it's at a tournament or just broadcast online. It's beautiful, really.
Beautiful, glorious, and it's
Yeah, it just feels like so natural, Like it just feels like we're taking a deep look into the human psyche as it breaks down over a
I don't
video
know, man.
game.
Like, because I think some of those tournaments are pretty epic. Like, especially like the fighting tournaments, like Smash tournaments. There's that dude who always takes his shirt off.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah. Hey, now, how much gamer rage have you seen? Because I've been in the trenches for a minute, but how familiar are you with like big gamer rage moments?
So aside from watching like compilations and stuff, like I've seen it from a couple different perspectives. So first is that, you know, I've raged at people a while ago. I used to have a group of friends that I gamed with that were like super, super toxic. And they were like really,
Okay, that's
really
still good.
hardcore gamers. But recently I've been like, or recently as in like the last decade, I've been more careful with like who I play games with. The other thing, from a clinical perspective, I've had like parents come to me because their kids are like punching holes through walls and, you know, smashing, like destroying things.
And what did you tell them to do to fix that? Like get good, or what was the solution there
So
for?
usually it wasn't the kid themselves. It was like the parent who was like showing up and they're like, I don't know what to do with my kid. They, you know, will punch a hole in the wall when they lose the game. We've
Okay,
also,
I
I've
getcha.
also seen that from significant others. So like romantic partners will be like, I don't know what to do about this. But it's interesting. I've done a lot of like I've helped a lot of gamers, even like pro gamers, with gamer rage a fair amount because, you know, they're competing professionally, so they can't afford to get upset in terms of their performance.
That
So,
makes sense. Okay, so you're pretty well versed then. You've seen it like in a professional practice, in a
Yeah.
professional setting, not just like goofy compilation
but
moments.
oddly enough, I think that like you know, it's different because I've sort of seen it, but I haven't seen the quintessential, or not too much recently. I haven't seen the quintessential, you know, like nerd who's just getting really, really bent out of shape over like some small thing. Like I sort of see it. But
Yeah.
even when I play games now, I'll be supportive. So I'll be like emotionally supportive for my teammates, like when I play Dota. And it works really well.
Do you think kindness usually offsets it? Like if someone's having a bad day and you're nice, do you think it helps them? Because I've always found the opposite. If you're nice to someone toxic in League, they hate you for it. They get real
So
mad.
oddly enough, I think there's a way to do it. So if you try to be nice, like if you tell them to calm down, that doesn't work. Like when you say you're trying to be
Okay.
nice to people in League, like what do you say?
Be like, hey, bud, it's all right. We all feed a little bit, you know. We can bounce back mid game or something. Like just something to like lift the spirits. And this is maybe like one time in like the 3 years I was addicted to it. I tried being nice and it didn't work, and I just put the kibosh on it on the
Well,
spot.
so there may be a couple things there, critical, to be honest, because I think you have a very interesting tone of voice. So you're,
Well, it's just text.
oh,
It's
it's
just
just text. Okay, so you just text. So
Yeah,
that's
just
even
text.
worse because I think so if I was feeding and someone typed to me, "It's okay, bro. We all feed sometimes." Like there's a decent chance that you're being a toxic person and actually like trolling me.
That's fucked up. No, that came from a place
Yeah.
of care. Like I felt bad. I was
No,
like,
no,
hey
no.
man,
I
we
agree.
can
That's
get
where
this
it's
back.
coming from. But I'm just saying, in the mind of a toxic gamer, you see what I mean?
Okay, I guess like if you're real like deep in
Yeah.
delusion, yeah, you think everyone's out to get you. Okay, I can see it.
So, and it sounds like it didn't work well for you, or
No, no, not at all. Not even a little bit.
yeah. So usually, so here's like one tip that I found works really well is so when my like so I usually play support, and so I usually lane with like the Dota equivalent of the ADC, and when my ADC is feeding, I'll usually ask them like a couple of questions or let them know what I'm doing. So like I don't know if can you share regen in League?
I haven't played in about 4 seasons, so I
Okay.
don't think
So
so. I don't think they've added any
there's a big
characters that can
aspect of
do that or
Dota where
anything.
like your safe lane support like usually ferries out regen for you. So this is the kind of thing where like I'll ask my carry, my ADC, I'll ask them like, "Hey, do you want me to stack the jungle so you can farm like we're losing this lane. So what do you want me to do? Do you want me to ferry out more regen and we're going to try to last hit, or do you want me to stack the jungle?" And so oddly enough, I found that like a couple minutes in, if we're losing, if I sort of like give them a little bit of control in terms of like, you know, picking something, it's almost like it's the same technique that I use with my, you know, 2-year-old when I ask her, "Do you want to put on your shoes first or do you want to brush your teeth first?" And if you give them a choice, it like seems to work pretty well.
That makes sense. That's
Yeah,
pretty
and
smart.
I'm surprised by how well it works. Like, it's really strange because a lot of people will talk about, if you want to climb MMR in a game, like, the best way to prevent yourself from raging is to mute all your teammates. So they'll say, like, from a mindset perspective, you should just mute all your teammates and just, like, play your own game. But it's a team game. So sometimes I think that you're sort of
Yeah,
shooting yourself in the foot.
true. I actually did bring a
Yeah.
topic today if you want to go over this. I found this was actually shared to me by Chelsea. I don't know if you're familiar, but she does a lot with us. And she read this article that's kind of old. So in Counter-Strike, a guy got killed in the game. He got knifed. He got embarrassed, right? If you get knifed in the game, it doesn't feel good. This guy got so salty about getting knifed in Counter-Strike, he stalked and hunted the guy down over the course of 6 months and stabbed him in real
Yeah,
life.
this is that guy in France, right?
Yep. Oh, so you know
I
the
mean, I
story.
saw the
Yeah, yeah,
headline.
yeah.
I
I'd
don't know
never
the
heard that.
details.
Yeah, so it was just as wild as it sounds. I
Yeah. What do you think?
I think that is an incredible, like, to stay. So usually when I get mad at something, like, we'll use chess for an example. Like, chess would make me mad when I'd lose. Like, losing chess just hurt because I know it's my fault. I can't blame teammates that I usually like to do. It hurts. But I only stay mad for like a couple of minutes maybe, and it just doesn't feel good. It's really fleeting, ephemeral. This guy stayed mad for 6 months. 6 or 7 months, actually. I just looked it up again. 7 months he tracked him down, mad the entire time about that one
Do
video
you know
game
what
moment.
happened to him afterward?
That he went to jail. Yeah, the guy didn't die, so he stabbed him and then even said he was a formidable opponent in the game and in real life or something like that. So he stabbed him and then went to jail for it.
Wow, that's nuts, man.
Yeah, it was a wild story. I'd never heard about it until Chelsea brought it up. I'm glad that you at least know
Yeah,
a
so
little bit about it because I think
it's
it's
not
so
the first time that
interesting.
something like that has happened. I actually remember this is like 20 years ago, but there was someone in, I think, Korea or Japan. They were like, there was some like early MMO or maybe Diablo or something like that. I don't remember the game, but some dude and his friend like got a very, very epic drop that was worth real money. And one of the, so like, it can only be in one person's inventory, but like we're partied up and like we get the epic drop. And so one guy, like the person whose inventory it was in, he sold it. And the other guy like actually like killed him. And
Oof,
so it was a
Christ.
crazy story. I don't even know if it's entirely true, but I mean, so we do have these like epic, people are saying in chat that it was Diablo, but I mean, we do have these like really, really edge cases of just very extreme stuff. I don't know, man. Like that's just so, it's so perseverative, meaning like, people focus on it so much that I mean, that's not like normal. That's not normal.
No, I would definitely say it's not normal. I just found that to be interesting. Since the topic is gamer
Yeah.
rage, that is the most extreme case I've ever heard of gamer rage. Spending 7 months going like full Liam Neeson to track and kill someone that stabbed you in Counter-Strike blew my
Yeah.
mind. Because they were really thorough. Based on what I read, they did like actual investigative research. Because keep in mind, the only thing he had to work with was his Steam profile. And then from that, he extrapolated his location, found him, and then plotted a course to stab him as like actual revenge. It's
I mean,
crazy stuff.
yeah, the desire to establish dominance can be very, very strong and very, very unhealthy, I suppose. I mean, like, I don't know what to say to that. That's just,
Yeah.
so Charlie, this is the kind of thing where like, we see very extreme behavior and there's an assumption that if you're a psychiatrist, you like may be able to understand it. But honestly, like my experience with very, very extreme behavior or even benign behavior is that oftentimes the judgments that we make are not actually like fair. And when you sit down and you actually talk to a human being, like what you learn is like very different from what you would expect.
Yeah. I feel like this was just some real fringe case, though. Like, this kind of stuff isn't very common,
Yeah.
obviously. The most common gamer rage is definitely like spur of the moment on stream. You get embarrassed by a viewer or something like that, or stream sniped, and you maybe slam a controller or two, and it's fun, like popcorn spectator stuff to me. Tournaments is always great. You mentioned the guy who takes his shirt off, so like fighting games have great rage moments. Like the guy who took his shirt off as a fighting game player. That's the
Yeah,
fun gamer rage. When you get to like the IRL
I was
stabbing,
I was
it's
gonna say, I
sad.
think with the guy who takes his shirt off, it almost becomes like a part of the culture, right? Because then
Yeah,
I saw this other
absolutely.
clip of like the dude he was playing against. I don't know if he. So do you know if he takes his shirt off when he wins or when he loses?
So I'm not sure exactly which one you're talking about because there's two big. One of them, a guy takes his shirt off,
Someone hit the lag button.
taking, and then he starts taking his belt
Yeah.
off, and then the guy he's playing against responds by taking his
Yeah.
shirt off before the game starts, and that's more of
Yeah,
like a
so
hype thing. Like
but
that one
so the
wasn't
guy,
angry.
the second dude who takes his shirt off, he takes his shirt off like routinely. So,
I didn't know it was that
so
often,
the
'cause-
first guy who takes his shirt off, he does it to kind of like, I don't know, like I guess a challenge. I think he did it when he won, and then so he takes his shirt off and then like puts it over the other dude's back, and so the other guy was like, "Okay, you want to throw down?" Then he takes his shirt off, and then of course the audience goes wild.
I never knew that context. So I do know there is one moment, and I think it was Guilty Gear. There was some guy who got really mad and he took his shirt off and then like stormed the mic to issue a challenge to the guy who had just won. So like a WWE promotional type moment. It was quite a few years back now, so I don't remember like the full context. But that one seems to me a little bit more like one of those alpha male moves, like I'm gonna beat the champ.
Wait,
now,
so but did he
kinda
issue a
things, and less
challenge
gamer
within the
rage.
game after he just lost, or did he issue like a?
No, this guy didn't. He didn't
Then
even
why- what
play.
was he- what
This
was he
guy was
raging
like,
about?
I don't know. He wasn't even playing. He took his shirt off like in the audience, came up to this stage like where they were interviewing the winner to issue a challenge to him to play him, which was declined, obviously. So it probably wasn't gamer rage. It really felt like more of like an alpha male kind of move. Like I may be spectating, but I'm still the.
Oh, we clipping out? Is that us? Oh, you just landed it for a second.
Oh, did it
You're
break
saying
up?
it was more of an alpha move? Alpha move?
Yeah, like it feels to me like it was supposed to be more of like a dominance.
What do you
kind
think
of
about
thing.
all that alpha stuff? The alphas, the betas, the
Oh,
sigmas.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It is so. I will say. I'll preface this by saying I feel bad because I've been in that same situation. You know, like you're a lonely guy. You know, you're hearing all these things like, you know, you can get girls if you just buy this book or you try these things, and you know, when you're that down, it seems like it might work, and you get hopeful and all that. And I feel bad for people that buy into it and lose money. But when you watch those alpha male and sigma male videos, it's so entertaining. It is
What do
so
they-
entertaining
Wait,
that
so
anyone.
what's a sigma? What is it? Alpha male is better or sigma male is better?
So it depends on who you ask. Sigma male, I think, has started to become the new alpha, or at least they tried to for a brief moment, like the Sigma grind set. So the Sigma male he's fine alone, but he can get babes whenever he want, kind of thing. He's reserved. He's not as showy as an alpha male kind of thing. He just puts his nose to the pavement and grinds. He's a grinder. He can get girls, but he doesn't need girls, and he's not annoying. It's basically like every quality ever for a guy ever, and they
Do
call
you
it a
think the
sigma
sigma
male.
male rages more, or the alpha male rages more, or the beta male?
Definitely the alpha male. The sigma male's too reserved. They're too calm and collected. They can't rage.
And the
They're
alpha
above it. But the
alpha
alpha
rages
male,
more than the beta male.
well, I think maybe the beta male would rage more on the hierarchy of like male astrology. I'm not sure, but definitely not the sigma male. They
Because
wouldn't rage.
they're just all about grinding, right? Win or lose, it's about getting better.
Yeah, win or lose, I'm focusing on myself. I'll probably have a lot of sex too, but at the end of the day, it's about the grind. That's the Sigma
And
male.
why do you think people get so caught up in rage? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. That I don't know. I don't know how someone gets lost in that rabbit hole and then gets mad. I couldn't tell you. It feels like maybe it's a bit of self-loathing. Like, damn, I really bought into it, and now look at me. I'm still miserable, and I've lost money.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. Like, so based on some of my experience, I think one of the biggest things that causes rage is actually a feeling of righteousness. So
Okay, that
I
makes
think that
sense.
like most people who will rage because they had an expectation in a game that was not met, and they feel that is unfair. So it's sort of like
Okay.
because most people think that anger in a video game is like a negative emotion that needs to be conquered, but generally speaking, I think it's like it's kind of weird because it's not just anger, it's actually like righteousness, which is why it's so hard to get rid of. Right? Cuz like yeah.
I was gonna say, do you think like I say team games are the main source of gamer rage? I feel like I see it a lot more. Like Call of Duty tournaments, you have people like screaming so loud their voice starts cracking and going like full dolphin. I feel like a lot of gamer rage comes from feeling like it was out of your control. Do you think that's probably like a safe assumption? Because, getting mad in League, it's like, damn, I could have won this if only top lane wasn't dog shit
Exactly.
kind of thing. So then
Exactly.
they
So
just
I
get
think
real
I think
mad.
even the way that you described it was really important because it's the fact that like I should have won this except for ... So I'm being given a result that is unfair. I don't deserve this because I played well, but someone else did not do what they were supposed to do, or it's the luck of the draw. Like the enemy team had a top laner who was like dynamic and stuff, whereas it's sort of like everyone blames the jungler. I don't know if you heard this, but there was a great
Yeah.
post by actually Broxa recently where he was talking about how like everyone blames the jungler because
That's been theirs for as long as League has been there. If you're doing bad,
yeah,
blame the
right. So
jungler.
it's this idea that like and the problem with gamer rage is that when you blame circumstances outside of your control, when you don't adopt the Sigma grind set, what happens is you actually reinforce losing games. Because if I lose my lane and then I blame the jungler, then I'm not going to learn the mistakes from like the laning phase. And it means that I'm going to lose the game again. And I'm going to lose my next game. And then the more I blame the junglers, the more I start to believe all junglers are crap.
I also think it's healthy might not be the right word. So for someone like me, I'm always looking for scapegoats, right? Like it's never my fault I lose a game that's team based. So I feel like a lot of it can be conquered if you just convince yourself, like strongly enough, that you did amazing and everyone else did bad, but that's okay, right? Just come to terms. Like you can blame other people as long as you just accept at the end of the day, maybe they're just not as good as you, right? How do you feel about that? Do you think that could help curve the rage aspect and just maybe like
I
placate it a
think
bit?
that's so let's just think through that for a second.
Unhealthy.
So the first is there's an ego response for sure to blame others instead of yourself. And so it's kind of interesting because usually that ego response is toxic. I think what you're doing is doubling down on the ego response, but in a
Right.
non-toxic way. Does that make sense? Because
Okay,
it's like,
okay.
oh yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm so great. Like I just can't I can't expect these crappy noobs on my team. Like who like it's also super egotistical. But I think it'll curb
But I'm not
you won't
raging.
rage, right? So it's sort of like the lesser humans. You can't blame the lesser humans for being bad at Dota or LoL. Like
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think it sort of helps in a way. Like it sounds like you can get to a healthy place with that. I still think though that acknowledging that, maybe you're not the best person in the world when it comes to this particular video game, and that's why you're sitting at, you're hard stuck at bronze for maybe a reason.
Yeah, it's kind of fucked up. If you're hard stuck bronze, don't use my technique. You don't deserve it. Hard stuck bronze. That's
You know what gamer
disgusting.
rage is actually appropriate? This has been wild. So there's a guy who's basically the equivalent of bronze in Dota who buys a challenger level account. So he's an account buyer. So he buys he's like, so the MMR in Dota goes from like, let's say 1 to like 11K. So 0 to 11K. So he's like a sub 1,000 MMR player. So he's like in the bottom like 5% or 2% of Dota players. Except he buys this account that's like a top 30 immortal account, which is like a challenger level account, and then he just like chain feeds in these games. And boy, do people he like just ruins games. Like it's like if you get him on your team, there's just nothing you can do.
Does he think he deserves to be there, or does he do it just to
Who
ruin
knows?
games?
Right? So
Okay.
like that's the thing. Like I'm so curious why. So yeah, the I think he's an undying picker. He's the reverse Smurf. And Chad is telling me that his name is Leopold. But I still can't tell if he's doing it to troll or he thinks he deserves to be there or like what's going on. But then people understandably get really, really upset. Like it's bad enough having a Smurf in your game. But if he's trolling, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, so I looked him up. So he's well known in the community. Leopold, the account buyer, is back GigaChad, and anytime they talk about Leopold, they hit him with GigaChad memes. So I guess they look at him as like a joke or something.
I mean, I think it's funny. I guess it's funny for everyone who's not in the game.
True. Yeah, I'd be tight. I'd be upset. That actually reminds me. It doesn't tie in 1-to-1. This is an interesting case study. I don't know if you've heard of Sunless Khan. He's a Rocket League YouTuber, and I've referenced this video quite a few times. He interviewed a player who is hard stuck gold. I believe it's gold, and he has, I think, close to 15,000 hours in the game. And when he interviewed them, it turns out like he's a good player. Like he should not be stuck gold, but he has never taken responsibility for being where he is, and says like solely the reason he is stuck there is because of bad teammates, like solely because of bad teammates, despite 15,000-ish hours in the game. That one's pretty eye-opening. So not really Leopold, because he never really says that he deserves to be higher, but he just completely puts it all on everyone else and has still not gotten around it, which blew my mind, because I feel like with that many hours, you would eventually slowly chip away at like climbing the plat or diamond.
Well,
I mean,
you would think so, but actually that's surprisingly not the case. So like there's actually some interesting research about this. So if you look at doctors, you can tell within the first 2 to 5 years after doctors finish training, what quartile of doctor you're going to be. So you can tell within like 2 to 5 years if you're going to be like a well-performing doctor or a poorly performing doctor. And not to say that poorly performing doctors like do a bad job, but in terms of like clinical outcomes and stuff, like you can actually tell. So the other really shocking thing is that people assume that if you've been practicing for 30 years, you're going to know more and be more competent than someone who's been practicing for 5 years. There's an assumption in society in general that experience correlates with quality. But if you look at like,
I would think so. I really would think so. That's surprising that that's not the case for doctors.
Let me ask you, like, who are the best chess players in the world?
It's young.
But how does that work if experience correlates with quality?
Yeah, no, that was a really good example off rip. Yeah, the best chess players, well, the ones with the like I guess the highest skill ceiling are like the younger ones. Of course, you still have like the Magnus Carlsens, the Hikarus, and all that, but the younger the chess player, like the higher their potential is and the better they're performing right now.
So it's
that is a good example.
Right? So as it turns out that what you can determine is whether a doctor is an active learner or not. So when you finish training, there's like doctors go on basically 2 paths. One is like they sort of treat their day-to-day job in the same way that they did when they were still in training, which is like every patient I see is like an opportunity to learn. Whereas some people develop habits and like basically start to coast. And it's not that they do a bad job, because medical training is very specific. So like we're very, very good about raising the floor for doctors. So the floor is very, very high. And that's what medical training aims to do. Like even when we do 24-hour calls, 36-hour calls, the reason we do those 24-hour calls is to make sure that the stuff is so deeply ingrained in you that you can be fatigued, like haven't slept in a day, and you still perform really, really well because the stakes are high. Yeah, Jesus. It's kind of nuts.
That is pretty
but
nuts.
When it comes to sort of quality, what you figure out, or what we've sort of determined from looking at medicine, is that doctors who try to get better are the ones who will perform better. And if you kind of just do the same thing over and over and over again, you'll kind of like, you won't get better. And so I think that's true of gaming. That's why, like, if you think about it, like, you know, a lot of people will play games for a very long time. They'll pack away 500 hours, 1,000 hours. Forget about 15. You don't need 15. You know, over 2,000 hours, you'll still have people that are in the same, like, I'm sort of one of those people where, like, at some point, like, my MMR started declining. And if you don't try to get better, you're not going to get better.
Do you think that there's a certain... I guess this is something I've always wondered. I actually tried a little experiment with a friend of mine. He'd never played any PC games in his life, and I was curious if, like, given enough time and given enough, like, access to coaching, if he could go from actual ground zero of, like, FPS gaming on the PC to, like, a reasonable rank in Valorant. He ended up getting gold, which I thought was pretty impressive. But do you think that there's a level where no matter how much training, no matter like how much coaching you get, there's just certain things you will never be able to do that someone that is just born more talented can? Or do you think it's always like an achievable thing? Like just a matter of putting in the work and like getting in there and practicing? I love that
question, man. That question is something I think about so much. Like the more I work in esports, the more I think about that question. So the short answer, I think, is that not everyone can be the best in the world. Can you hold on just 1 second?
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, what's up? Sure. Okay. I gotta just share a link real quick.
By all means.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we're going to go ahead and just flash over to one of Opera's. So I think we showed the video, but I think we've also got. So give me just 1 second, Charlie. So I was planning on going into this at the end, but I can send you. I think I've got, I've got the. I sent you the link, right?
Yeah.
If you want to show it there too. Let me just.
I think if I pull this up, it'll here. I'll try it, but I think that's gonna change your stream because it's gonna take me off of the main here. But I'll give it a whirl. Tell me if this changes anything.
No, I think I'm fine for now. So, we just wanted to remind everyone this is a sponsored stream. So Opera GX has been kind enough to sponsor some coaching packages for our community. And, they came up with this idea of anger controllers, which are controllers that break apart when you throw them and you can just like put them back together. Those unfortunately aren't real, but anger absolutely is. So Critical and I are going to be talking about this. Oh, yeah, it looks like there's a countdown timer. So interesting. And we're going to be talking about this today. So we're about to talk a little bit about skill ceilings for gamers, which is a fascinating topic. And there's also a Reddit thread that we're checking out where you guys can go ahead and sign up and enter a giveaway to get coaching. So yeah, thank y'all everyone for being here. Back to Charlie's question. So you were asking, do you think you can, theoretically, can you like be the best if you practice hard enough?
Not even the best. Could someone like me? I would say I was born without that like X factor gene that makes you like really click with like FPS games, for example. But could I go from my current level to at least like a, almost professional level, or even like the lower end of the pro level spectrum? Or do you think there really is just a cap to what you can learn without that God-given talent?
I think you could probably get Challenger, I would think, in a game like League. Challenger is top 300 players, right?
I don't remember exactly what Challenger is. I think it might be top 500
so I think
or top 100.
You can get like you can become a really, really good amateur. The problem with some of these things is that depending on, I don't know, if you could get like top 300, but the challenge is that you're competing against other people who may be putting in exactly what you're putting in and may have a little bit more talent. So if we look at like professional players in esports, you're going to have tier 1 players, you're going to have tier 2 players, and you're going to have tier 3 players. And basically, like, even the tier 3 players are going to be putting in a comparable amount of effort as the tier 1 players. I think that there's a lot, though, when you say, like, if you put in the right kind of effort, where I think a big reason why tier 1 players are tier 1 players is because they put in effort in a lot of different places that tier 2 or tier 3 players don't put in. So that's stuff like communication. Like, gamers don't think about communication as a skill. So, like, you'll have all of these players, and you'll see this a lot, where you'll have a player who's, like, talented, but they won't do well. Or you'll have a player who seemed to be mediocre, will get let go from a team, will join another team, and then suddenly they'll start dominating. So there are so many factors. I don't know if, like, do you follow? I don't know if you follow pro lol or things like that, right? But
I keep up as much as I can.
I think this is the kind of thing where, like, are you kind of familiar with that paradigm? Like, you'll get some tier 2 player who suddenly joins a team, and then they look amazing. Or you'll get a player who is carrying a team on their back, or you'll get this team that's full of superstars. We're going to put together this 5-stack that's like all amazing players, and it flops. Right? So then the question is, what could be responsible for those two, like, results? Like, how could you put together a team of master players that flop, or a team with, like, that takes a tier 2 player that suddenly, like, kicks ass? And I think it's because there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. Comms, like, people like not butting heads, managing egos on teams, things like that. So especially on a team game, when you're talking about your performance, it's not just your accuracy and things like that. It's like, do you think about the team? Do you know how to communicate well? Are your comms efficient? There's a bunch of stuff. And what I've seen, basically, I've seen the inside of a couple of very successful esports teams, is that it's like night and day, man. Like, I've worked with tier 3 teams and I've worked with tier 1 teams. And the difference between the tier 1 and tier 3 team is, like, they don't understand some of these basics. Like, they don't know how to communicate. They'll literally have 10-hour discussions where they don't know how to communicate. So the discussion is just circular and they, like, never get to a conclusion. And so they'll, like, try to hash it out, and then they'll have, like, a match the next day and they haven't figured it out.
Do you think if they did figure it out, they would be able to compete, like, up there as a, like, tier 2, tier 1 team?
Or do you think so?
Okay. So then it really is a matter of putting the work into the right spot.
So but I think the challenge is that at the end of the day, like, any human brain is going to be, so you have to be, like, good at hitting things. You have to be, like, good at, like, strategic thinking. You have to be good at, like, reflexes, and you have to be good at communication.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you still don't think that you can reach the top through just hard work. I think you would also agree there has to be a level of, like, just actual talent, like, you're born with to get to, like, the number 1.
I feel pretty confident about that. And the simple reason for that is that there are a lot of people, speaking of anger, this is actually a great example. There are a lot of people who are putting in a ton of work and don't get anywhere near there, right? So I was talking with some pro players about how frustrating it was to play with top tier pubs. So, like, it's interesting because if you talk to gamers, pro players, what they'll say is that the highest level of pubs are oftentimes the most toxic, which is, like, interesting. Like, I don't know what the reasons for that. I mean, I have a couple of hypotheses, but, like, you have any idea about why that would be?
Probably just being comfortable, because in pubs, you're in your own house. Might have had a bad day. It's super, like, volatile. You don't know the circumstances. You hop on, maybe you want, like, casual games. It gets sweaty. You get stomped. You feel bad, and you just had, like, a bad day all around. I could definitely see why pubs would always be more toxic, honestly.
Could be more toxic for sure, but specifically the higher up you go in the ranking, and at the top tier of pub games, they're actually very toxic.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone, I know for a fact why. Everyone at that level thinks they're just a couple steps away from professional. Like, this could be my career. I am right there on the cusp of my dream. So everything that maybe goes wrong in there, they take it much more seriously than someone in silver who knows that they're trash.
So
I definitely see why.
It's so interesting because I think what goes on is so we were trying to talk a little bit about developing empathy for your teammates and things like that. And so, here's a question that I kind of asked people, which is, like, imagine what your life is like if you're, like, a tier 3 pub star in a game like League of Legends or Dota. You play just as much as the pros, but you don't go to the tournaments. You don't have a team. You don't have a salary. And like, just how, like, you've devoted your life to playing this game, just like the superstars have. You've sacrificed everything that they've sacrificed. They have a team. They go to tournaments. They compete, but you don't. And it's because that's what it takes. Right?
Yeah, I mean that sounded like really targeted. Yeah, like if that was me, I'd be mad just hearing
like,
that.
That's what it takes to get, like, if you're like a top 100 like pub star, like that's what it takes. Right? You've spent years of your life.
100%.
Because you can't get there. Like, because you got to put in the work. And despite all the work, and you dropped out of college, you've never had a girlfriend or boyfriend, you know? And like, for what? Like, you sacrificed the best years of your life to be a tier 3 pub star? It's rough.
Yeah, that sucks. I'm about to gamer rage right now, honestly, and that's not even me.
So
Shit.
like, I think that's, I know it's kind of weird, but so the takeaway, the reason we have that is like, have compassion, right? Like these people's lives are, you know, like, it's tough.
Yeah, that is something I had never really stopped and think about, because take, for example, like anyone in the top 500 of like Fortnite, for example. I don't know why I chose Fortnite. It just, I played in their event recently, so it popped in my head. Only like 50 of those players play professionally, like actually get paid for it, despite all the top 500 playing just as much. That shit's gotta suck. Oh my
it's
god.
rough. Right, because you make all, and that's where I think, so the rage comes from a couple of different places. One is it comes from righteousness, because you've made all the sacrifices that they have, and then when you lose to them, oh my god. Or when they make a mistake in the game, how could this guy be so bad? When you're queuing with pros, and you don't do your job in lane, and y'all end up getting crushed, and then at the end of the game, your carry is like 0-4. It's so easy to rage at them. It all comes out so easily.
True. And sometimes it comes out beautifully too, where you just get like the stars that align and you get like a broken keyboard, broken mouse kind of thing, and then everyone's laughing at you. And then you get even more, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. You break your computer, break your monitor, now you're out money too because you got mad. Now you're mad because you out money, and now you're mad because you ruined that and you lost the game. It's such a almost beautiful train wreck that you can't look away from. And that's why I'm such a fan of those like rage compilations. It's just so interesting. I've never broken anything in Rage. Of course, when I was younger, I had the gamer rage moments. I always chose pillows, something I couldn't possibly like break or ruin. But when you see those compilations, you see at a tournament the controller spike, that's money down the drain too. So now you're mad, people are laughing at you because you're mad, and you just broke your shit, so you're gonna lose money on it. It's just an absolute disaster.
It's kind of weird, but I almost think that there's something gratifying about smashing a controller because it's worth something. This is sort of, yeah.
You think so?
Like, I know that I know that in the rare times I've raged, I've tried to do healthier things like punch pillows, and punching a pillow is so unsatisfying.
Yo, what kind of pillows are you punching? Tempur-Pedic? You get some feather pillows or something. It gives you like a little like
So the closest
feedback.
I've gotten is recently is actually playing Elden Ring, but like
okay, that sounds about right.
Elden Ring is, you know, like I could certainly see a certain satisfaction to like smashing the thing that, because the pillow didn't do anything to you, right? It's the controller.
Yeah, but
in the
I mean
game.
the controller didn't either.
The controller failed me because my skill is epic.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you're saying.
And
okay.
the other thing is that controllers have a very satisfying, there's like a crunchiness to controllers and keyboards, right?
Right. Okay, so what you're saying is we need more raging and more controllers breaking because it's therapeutic.
No, I mean,
It's like
I don't
ASMR
think that's a good answer, but
I see what you're saying.
I think that there's a reason why people do it, and it feels pretty satisfying to like smash something. Right? Pillows aren't really smashable. Like, not in like a, you know. I mean, I think what we should do is is better, first of all, like have compassion for people who are angry. I think that the other thing that's really, really important that you sort of mentioned about the guy who has 15,000 hours is I think he falls into the cognitive bias trap really easily, right? So it's like, my teammates are bad, therefore I lose. Then once you have that hypothesis, your brain actually selectively filters information to support it. So every game, what happens is none of your teammates are going to be like, he's in gold, right? So people are going to be making mistakes. And so you're just hypersensitive to the mistakes that every person makes. So each game you play further confirms your hypothesis. And the stronger the hypothesis becomes, the stronger the cognitive filter becomes. The stronger the cognitive filter becomes, the more evidence you get. And so you also see this actually, like speaking of, masculinity and like toxic masculinity circles, where they develop a hypothesis and then they start to get like confirmatory information.
Yeah, jawline and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah. So then I guess not directly in line with that, but I am curious on what you think. What community, like game community, do you think has the most toxicity? I think team-based games are going to be the most toxic because I feel like games like fighting games, chess, stuff like that, when you lose, you know it's your fault and you get sad. I think there's more sadness in like a solo game because you know you fucked up. But in team-based games, I feel like everyone always gets the maddest because there's so many other things you can point to. What do you think is the most toxic community?
I don't know is the short answer. But I think it's almost like, so I sort of don't like the question. So first thing, everyone in chat is saying whatever game they play. So the short answer, actually the real answer is whatever game I play is the one that has the worst community. But I think there are a couple of things to remember. The first is that, like, so I used to run trauma groups, like back when I did a bunch of clinical work. And so this is like a group for people who are suffering from trauma. And sometimes what would happen is you'd get this like one-upping where like one person was like, oh yeah, I did this. And like someone else was like, well, like my situation was worse. And then my situation is worse. Like you'll have Dota and League players that argue with each other all the time. The really funny thing is they'll also argue about their own game being more toxic, which is like, it's a point of pride.
True.
But I think that it sort of doesn't, I don't know. I mean, so based on what I've heard that Call of Duty is like super toxic.
To a certain extent. So I think Call of Duty gets that reputation from Xbox Live back in the day. So like old Xbox Live, like the real vicious lobbies.
I think that there's like some amount, like, so I don't know if that's still true or if it's, I've never played Call of Duty, so I don't actually know. I know one thing that's kind of interesting is Dota actually has this thing called low priority queue. So
Yes, I know
and
that.
so I've never even played one of those games, but I'm so curious. Like I wanna like borrow someone's account who's in low priority and like just see what happens if I go in there. Because what they do is they actually group all the people who are toxic together, and apparently it's just
so good.
Awful.
It's so good. Everything I've heard about low priority queue is so good. But I know a lot of people just mute in low priority queue now, so it's not as crazy as it once was. But yeah, everything I read about and like the clips I watched from like low priority queue moments is always interesting.
So I play in the high priority queue stuff, and it's great. Like this is where some of the stuff I was telling you like works. Like you can talk to people who have gone 0-2 in lane, and you like start asking them questions and stuff. It's like, hey, how can I help you? Like let's figure out how we're gonna come back from this. And people respond really well. Like they'll, it's sort of like I'll tell them to like, instead of telling them, because this is what a lot of people do, they'll be like, hey, you need to stop going to lane, you're just fucking feeding, but instead, like, you got to give them something to do instead. It's like, hey, I stacked camps for you, go jungle.
Yeah, you just target something else and bring them over.
So I think you gotta you don't criticize people for their play, you offer solutions, which some people do as well, because they'll be like, you should just uninstall the game. That's
well, and to a certain extent, that could be good advice. I think there's a lot of people whose lives would benefit if they uninstalled League. That game, it's also my answer for what I think the most toxic community is, and that's not just to farm trues. I know everyone says that, but I was hard stuck in League, like addicted to it for about 3 years and some change. I played from seasons 3 to like the beginning of season 7. I played a lot. And that game is the only game in my life where having like a bad couple of games could actually just ruin my whole day. That shit would actually just have like a toll on my mental. I wouldn't necessarily be like mad, like raging all day, but I just wouldn't feel good. Like it'd just be like in the back of my head, like, damn, that just
What do
doesn't
you think?
feel right. And then
What made League so different from other competitive multiplayer games?
I just don't know. I could never put my finger on it. I always go back to the fact where some things just feel out of your control. So, like, if you do well, it can still have no impact on the outcome. And those games back then used to always go like 40 plus. Nowadays, it's usually like a 20, 35-minute game in like the gold and plat region, which is what I played in. But back then, that's like a 40-minute time investment, like an absolute slobber knocker. You're going crazy, you're doing great, and then maybe one of your teammates AFKs for a bit, maybe one of your teammate rages and just runs it down mid, and that's just so out of your control that it feels awful. Like it just feels bad.
Yeah, I mean, so I played some League, and I didn't think it was that different in terms of toxicity. Like, but I mean, a lot of people think so. I wonder if it's just because a lot of people play League. So
It could just be so many
so,
people
so
playing
I think
it.
it's just every, because the other thing is, I mean, you can play League for, like, people have been playing League for like a decade, right? So I think you've been playing. So it's like the thing that you can always go back to. There's also some interesting research that shows that the addictiveness of video games is not actually due to the rewards, but the denial of reward. So yeah, it's interesting. So people have demonstrated that the more that the game denies you a reward, the more addictive it is.
So, like, give me an example of that outside of something like League, because I see how that would work there. But like, is there anything else that comes to mind?
So you play chess, right?
Yeah.
How much do you enjoy playing chess against 2-year-olds?
All right, that's a bad question to ask me. So we'll use Pokemon. I see what you're saying. So like Pokemon Unite, to me, the most fun was that I would, when the game came out, you could pay to get some bonuses, which would take other players a lot longer. So I swiped to get some bonuses just to make sure other kids in the game had no fun. So I see what your point is. And if I was to play chess against a 2-year-old, I would fucking stomp them. And I'd feel great.
So this is interesting. So we're talking about the addictive nature of it. So the question is, how likely are you to continue doing that? So you may do it for a little bit of the lulls, but how, like, you know, are you gonna play, like, is your game of choice to smash 2-year-olds in chess?
No, it'd probably just be like a part-time thing. I think just being the chess boogeyman at the elementary school. Yeah.
Right. But so this is where, like, basically because what we know is that if things are too easy, it's boring. If things are too hard, we give up.
Yeah.
And
you mad.
If you really want to engage people, you have to, like, you gotta make them rage. You gotta give them that thing that was like, it was right there. I could have won. But something happened and it fell apart. The interesting thing is that when that game happens and things fall apart, you get super pissed off. But the next time you play, things go in your favor, or you make a comeback or something like that. So it's the game that gives you the reward and denies you the reward. When you have both denial of reward and, like, achievement, those are the games that are most addictive. And if you played, like, From Software games, that's why they're so satisfying, right? It's like you're punishing yourself, and then you win, and then you're like, hell yeah, it feels so good.
It's
actually From Software's, like, ability to deny you a reward that actually gets things positive.
That's interesting. I never thought about it in that context. That kind of brought up this isn't really necessarily rage related, but you mentioned the denial of the reward being the thing that, like, really gets you hooked. It kind of reminds me of something that I've always noticed, where negative comments, whether it's on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube comments, whatever, are the ones that stick with you the most, whereas the positive ones kind of go in one ear out the other. They don't have any lasting impact on most people. It's like the couple of negative ones that really make the biggest impact that you always remember. Do you think it's something similar to that kind of, like, mental thing where it's the denial that makes it that much more, like,
I actually
addictive?
think it's a little bit different. So I think with a negative comments about you, right? That's what we're talking about. So I think that human beings, so let me put it this way. So, like, if I get an 85 on a test, my parents used to be disappointed, right? Because I didn't get an A. They wanted an A. And so in life, our brains are designed to look at the 15 questions we got wrong and ignore the 85 questions we got right. Right? So like no one's happy. Like, so our brains are just very, very fine-tuned to, we literally do not weigh things equally. There's a very, very strong cognitive bias towards the negative. So if I've eaten at a restaurant 20 times and the 21st time I get food poisoning, I'm not going to go back. So human brains, for evolutionary reasons, have adapted to overestimate the negative. And so you can have 9 people saying nice things about you, but all you need is one person in your tribe to be talking smack about you, and it can ruin your reputation.
Interesting. Okay. So you think that's just something that's built into like actual
100%.
Evolutionary traits?
It's way too common amongst streamers and people who like criticism. Like criticism is just praise just gets swamped by criticism, which is actually what's so sad. Is like a lot of the work that we do with like content creators is like really unfortunate, because I think a lot of people don't realize actually like how much power they have on the internet. People don't realize, people like post like, you know, Reddit, like on things on Reddit and be toxic in chat. I don't think they like, you're just kind of trolling and you're kind of a little bit angry and you kind of sort of justify it because, oh, this person is a big streamer and they get all these subs and things like that. So it's okay for me to be mean to them, because in the mind of the toxic person, the toxicity is justified by all of the positive stuff that the people have. Essentially, since they have some amount of privilege, like I can attack them because they've got money, right? And then I think what they don't realize is how damaging their words really are. Because when you like, you know, troll someone on the internet or you say something harsh on the internet, you never get any feedback. You don't know actually what the person who reads it, what that does to them.
It's interesting. So I never viewed that as like an evolutionary trait. You know, the more times that you see the negative stuff, the thicker your skin gets, as the expression goes. But it's so common for everyone that I see online. Do you think it's something that's always been there, or just something that's really started to take hold since the dawn of the internet, and just having all of these different things and all of these like potentially negative
so
comments?
This is where once again, a question that I love, and I've spent a lot of time. We've actually done a lot of research on this. So what's happening on the internet is we have our brain, and there's almost, the internet is evolving to take advantage of our brain. So what's happening, let's use video games as an example. What's happening with video games is someone innovates a feature, right? So like, let's say like World of Warcraft or EverQuest. People like RPGs, and then someone innovates a feature. They say, okay, what if we make an RPG in a persistent world? And that taps into a fundamental like need for community. So now you've got, in the past, you had an RPG. RPG is a fun game, so it's got like, satisfies the brain in particular ways. It's challenging, it requires me to think, it requires me to be analytical, but there's a tension between enjoying an RPG and sacrificing community. Like if I play RPGs all day, I never get to hang out with people, right? And then we innovate a game that gives me, I don't have to sacrifice community anymore. So now suddenly like my brain, it's so much easier to get addicted. And we saw a whole generation of people get addicted to WoW and EverQuest and things like that. And so over time, what's happening is the internet is just learning which permutations and combinations are the most predatory towards our brain. So I think there's a reason why Twitter beat out MySpace in terms of the way that people communicate. There's a reason why Twitter beat out like blogs. People used to communicate through blogs and discussion forums. And like, why is Twitter more successful? Because Twitter allows a level of engagement on like the neuroscientific level that is like far superior to a blog. Because with a blog, like I have to like do research, I have to like edit things, I have to write the post. It takes time for people to read it. But in Twitter, like we get that, I can summarize things in like 230 characters. I can get a complete thought out. So it's like the sweet spot. And I can rile people's emotions. right? So I can get a complete thought, but like I can't ever make an argument that is really defendable. So what Twitter actually does is fascinating. What they do is they allow people to make points, but no point you ever make is ever going to be fully defensible, which means that people can respond to your tweet and tear it apart pretty easily.
Yeah, that's the whole point of Twitter, is dunking on people.
So like
pretty
Twitter,
much.
I love that phrase, dunking, right? So Twitter is like dunking on people. So like people who have a certain political belief dunk on the other people, and all their fans get riled up, and then people on the opposite side will dunk on the other people. The betas or the sigmas are dunking on the alphas, and the alphas are dunking on the sigmas.
There's bodies in the streets, I'll tell you what, with the alphas and sigmas when they fight. It's mangled corpses everywhere.
I think to go back, I gave you kind of a really long answer, but to go back to your answer, I think that this function has always been there in the brain. I think that the internet allows a certain activation of that part of our brain, or even predation of that part of our brain that has not existed.
That's interesting. It's something I've never really thought too much about. I just always assumed it was something kind of new and not really like an evolutionary
No, man. Like
trait.
I think the more I've researched stuff on the internet, like bullying has existed since since kids were around. But what the internet allows is like a level of engagement with bullying. Like bullying used to stop when you went home for the day, but now, like if you're a bully, like you can just bully people more. You can bully people online. You can you can chase them around.
True. It's a great time to be a bully, honestly. Yeah, you have a lot of tools at your disposal. Damn. That's deep. Okay.
Yeah, it's wild stuff, man.
And it all contributes to gamer rage in some way or another.
And so just to kind of like wrap things up, I just want to share with y'all that Opera GX is really digging into creating a discussion around gamer rage, and they want to like create a safe space for people to share their perspectives. They've been trying to so they've got a lot of stuff that they're doing, and they're kind enough to sponsor coaching for our community. So if y'all are actually concerned about how do I deal with gamer rage, if y'all want to work on your anger, things like that, we offer peer support coaching services here at Healthy Gamer. And so be sure to check that out.
Awesome. Well, this was a lot of fun. Is there any other things you think we should touch on that we haven't already?
That's basically everything that we wanted to talk about. So just, one other thing is, this is great. So press F to pay respects for traditional web browsers. That's clever. Yeah, because I think the key thing about Opera GX is that it is like sort of a browser that's designed for gamers. I actually installed it recently. It's pretty good. So I highly recommend y'all check it out.
I've also been using Opera GX for about a
Really?
year now. I don't use anything else now. Yeah. I still have like a Chrome tab that runs just because I never remember the password to the account I'm logged in on, but that's the only reason. Opera GX is just straight up better.
Why do you like it?
It's just so much more convenient. Like I can pretty much do everything from the browser. Like if I need to do like Facebook Messenger, which is how I talk to Jackson, I can just actually do it from the computer instead of needing to switch. And it doesn't take nearly as many resources, so I don't actually just tank my entire computer to run the internet like I do with Chrome, or like I used to do with Chrome.
Yeah, so people in
it's straight up just a better browser.
We're getting two things in chat. One thing that we're getting is #ad, which this is a sponsored stream. But other people are like, actually, Opera GX is really good.
It is. Most people that try it usually don't go back. I just genuinely think it's the better browser out there.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying, so Easy Times PZ is saying Opera GX is actually sick. Super Idolatry is also saying OGX is actually not bad. And then Goff Golden is saying, I've been using Opera GX for 3 years now, and it's just better than anything else. Okay, so I'll try it. Yeah.
I would recommend it as well, especially since you yourself are a gamer. I mean, you mentioned Dota a lot. Dota's like some hardcore gamer shit. That's no Candy Crush. That's real, like, in the trenches gamer.
I'm a huge fan. I love Dota. I think it's got a steep learning curve, but it's For an old man like myself, it's like the one game that, you know, I can go back to for year after year after year and like not have to learn new things.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand that. There is one more thing I'd
Sure.
like to bring up, and this is for everyone. I guess like a little bit of homework. Since we talked about gamer rage, I highly recommend everyone here check out Crobcat's videos on the brilliant fighting game community. Great gamer rage moments. There's 1 and 2. And I highly recommend looking up the Super Smash Bros. Salty
Awesome.
moments. They are so good.
We'll definitely check it out, man. Are you still streaming?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
gonna
cool.
keep
So
going.
we'll just send a raid your way, okay?
Hey, I appreciate
Take
that.
care,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Thanks, everyone.
Let's go. We're gonna go here, and then let me disconnect. Yeah, y'all. So by all means, check this stuff out. It's always a blast to talk to Charlie. So thank you all very. Oh, that's Streamlabs. Yeah, so check it out. And it was great to see y'all. We'll see y'all on Wednesday with other stuff. And yeah, so if you guys are interested in winning some coaching, join the Reddit discussion by all means. And also, like, just share your perspectives because, like I was mentioning to Charlie, you know, we can hypothesize what's going on with gamer age, but ultimately it's going to be like, you know, talking to gamers. That's what we really do. And the cool thing about talking is that sometimes it can actually help problems. So take care, everyone, and we're going to send Moist Critical some love. Did I get that right? Yes. It's always tricky because you never know which of the I's is actually a 1. So we'll see y'all hopefully on Wednesday. By the way, it's June. Yeah, I know. We're just running behind. Take care, y'all.